Hey guys, I'm Therapy Through Pixels. I'm an amateur artist, licensed therapist, and avid gamer. Today I'm going to be discussing the character Yoshizawa from Persona 5 Royal and dissociative identity disorder, otherwise known as multiple personality disorder. I'm going to do all that while I paint her portrait. So, Yoshizawa, does she have dissociative identity disorder? No. I don't think so, no. Um, she she seems to have what might be a depressive episode at some point before the game. She has, what we might call cognitive fusion, which is when someone fuses their thoughts to their identity. For example, people will only like me if I'm as good as my sister, or I should be more like my sister. So she definitely has a lot of those types of thoughts going on. Um, you know, her sister tragically loses her life in an accident involving Yoshizawa, and there's grief there and potentially trauma given her mental state before the accident, because that's how trauma works, right? It's not what happened to you, but how you responded to what happened based on a ton of shit and other factors like, what was your support system like, your emotional regulation skills, right? There's a lot that it's complicated. It's complicated. But Yoshizawa's response is to become her sister, right? It's kind of funny to watch because she she's in the therapy office and she puts on her sister's glasses and or no, I'm sorry. She takes off her glasses and then she puts her hair in the same style as her sister. And yeah, that's it. Bing bang boom. She's her sister. Um, minus there's some magical shenanigans going on at the time, but yeah. Yeah, it happens just like that, right? So, there's a change in identity there. So, that's I think where this argument about multiple personality disorder comes up a lot. But yeah, there's definitely a change in identity, right? She's got a new style, new hair, new mannerisms, new preferences, a new name. But this type of identity shift is common in both dissociative identity disorder and borderline personality disorder. And in fact, like a lot of people get misdiagnosed as having DID when really they just had BPD. Yoshizawa does say stuff like, my body doesn't feel like my own, which is a dissociative experience, which is common with DID. If you don't know, if you've never heard of like dissociation, it's when you feel like this disconnect between the world and the people in it and yourself. Um, Deja vu is a super common dissociative experience. If you've ever felt it before, like the strangeness of experiencing deja vu just completely takes over, and you're just stuck in this, like, oh my God, I feel like I've been here before. And you're talking to the people you're with, and you're like, I've been here before, I know it. And they're like, "Oh, okay." But it just feels so strong, right? Um, Oh, another really common dissociative experience is like, if you've ever been driving home and you like pull up into your driveway and you realize you don't remember the drive, like at all. Like it's just a complete blank. Um, that's called traveler's amnesia, and that's actually pretty common in DID. But yeah, all of these are dissociative experiences, right? Like this disconnect. And this disconnect is at the heart of dissociative identity disorder. Um, yeah, these kinds of dissociations happen when you experience stress. It's like your sympathetic nervous system activates that like fight or flight response, hoping that like the benefits of being in that state can get you out of like whatever stressful situation you're in at the time. But for a lot of people, they get kind of stuck in that state constantly, constantly, and it's such an energy-filled state that, at some point your brain is just exhausted. The brain's just like, "Okay, this isn't cutting it." And that's when you see the really strong dissociative experiences. It's, your body putting distance in between, you know, who you are and who you need to be to survive whatever crazy situation you're in at the time, okay? It's a defensive response. Um, so, all of that is to say that the people who usually have dissociative identity disorder, they've gone through some okay? Like, we're talking, like, a by a family member kind of okay? Before I, like, really get into the weeds about some of the, like, dissociative identity disorder symptoms and stuff, um, just, in case you don't know, um, it's difficult to DID, it's a tricky one, right? It's tricky because it is extremely rare, like extremely rare. And because of that, there is so little research. Like, we have practically no information on this thing. And because of that, naturally, it's really misunderstood, really misdiagnosed. And like, what we do know about the disorder all comes from case studies about, like, one person or this person or that person. And, case studies are fine for establishing like some kind of foundation, but they are so prone to bias, right? So it's very tricky. The basic facts are, with dissociative identity disorder, you've got like two major things going on. The first thing is you have like the switching the first thing is that you have like the switching between distinct personalities, and switching, that's a key word we're going to talk about here in a second. And the second like big component is this amnesia at play, that whenever that switching occurs, there's usually some amnesia to go along with it. But one thing that's really often, misunderstood and, kind of played up and made fun of sometimes is, like, people tend to think that there's this very theatrical switching of personalities, when in reality, most observers can't tell. They can't tell when someone with DID is switching personalities. Um, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but mostly like in a clinical setting, when these people are coming in for treatment, they're usually coming in with a lot of shame. Like, imagine, right? Imagine if you were experiencing these things. In reality, it would be so hard to talk to anyone about it, much less a stranger, right? So a lot of people with this disorder, like, they know how extreme it sounds, and they will typically try to hide their symptoms, right? They'll mask, basically. Um, and, speaking of symptoms, let's kind of go through some of those real quick. People with this disorder tend to report like auditory hallucinations, intrusive thoughts that feel like they're being implanted by someone else, because again, right, there's that distance between that person's identity. So it can feel like when they're having a thought, it can feel like, okay, my identity is kind of hazy. Who does this thought belong to, right? There's also seizures, usually substance abuse, because the person is using substances to manage their symptoms, right? Not unheard of. And this is a pretty debilitating, pretty debilitating disorder. So, you couple that with the substance use, you're gonna get fairly high rates, right? So anyway, sorry, this has been long-winded. Going back to Yoshizawa, like, she's a fictional side character. We have no idea what her internal state is, what her perspective is. We don't know. So, I'm kind of doing this for fun, but I'm doing this in a way I would never do with a real person. Like, I'm making a lot of assumptions here because I don't know what her internal, you know, experiences are. If this was a real person sitting in front of me, like, I would be asking them to describe what this is like for them, and we'd go from there, right? But can't do that. She's a character, right? Anyway, just for funsies, she does have a separate personality state. Like, we can see that. But she doesn't seem to switch. She switches initially to this alternate personality that is like her sister, right? But then she stays in that state for the majority of the game and maybe would have stayed in that state, forever if not for like the protagonist like intervening and, more magic shenanigans going on. And, kind of on that note, one of the criteria for this diagnosis is that the person needs to be having some amount of distress from their symptoms. But Yoshizawa doesn't. She switches and it's like her life is instantly better. Her mood is noticeably elevated. She doesn't have problems in school. She's making good grades. She's doing well in sports. Not as well as she would like, it turns out, but she got like third place in this like really competitive gymnastics tournament. Like, that's a success, okay? She's able to make and maintain her relationships. So she's not in distress, and there aren't really any parts of her life that are being overtaken or impacted by her symptoms. Oh, another one is the person needs to experience some kind of disconnect from their sense of self. And yeah, we do see that with Yoshizawa. She tells the protagonist, like, sometimes I feel like my body isn't mine, and, stuff along those lines. So, yeah. So, anyway, here's the painting. I tried to really go ham with the colors, and I think I succeeded there. Yeah, I think it came out good. Oh, the paper I used is the mixed media paper by Strathmore. The watercolors I used were the White Nights watercolor set. I'll be putting out some more stuff. I have I've been making a lot of stuff for Metaphor. Anyway, bye.